Number 1.
Long worked as a second-shift employee at Bibb Manufacturing Company in Bibb County, Georgia. Her duties included placing labels on sheet packages. She resided at her former stepfather's residence on Ashland Drive in the Bloomfield area of Macon, Georgia. He and her mother had divorced shortly before. Long's mother said that she was attempting tough love with her daughter in 1991. Her mother said that Long treated her home as if she owned the property while they lived together. Long's mother suggested that her daughter find her own residence after she and her stepfather divorced. Long's relationship with her mother improved after they went their separate ways. Long completed her shift at the factory at 11 p.m. on August 13, 1991. She drove her boyfriend's Chevrolet Camaro back to his house shortly thereafter. Long's truck had not been operating properly, and she drove his vehicle to work. Her boyfriend saw her back to her stepfather's house, then departed shortly afterwards. Authorities believe that Long watched the Arsenio Hall show on television and wrote a 3-page note to her boyfriend around 12 a.m. on August 14. She apologized for an argument that occurred and promised to cook him a lasagna dinner the following evening. Long phoned her mother between 12:30 a.m. and 1:30 a.m. She said she was going to go to visit Keith Daniel Lloyd, a 21-year-old neighbor who'd attended her high school, to help him with a gift for his mother. She thought Lloyd's request was odd and asked her mother to call her within half an hour if she didn't call her mother first. Long's mother said that she would be asleep by that time and suggested they speak later in the morning. Long's mother reported that her daughter sounded annoyed but gave no indication that anything was amiss. She has never been heard from again. Long's stepfather returned home at approximately 3 a.m. after visiting friends in the Warner Robins area. He said that the lights were on inside the house and Long's truck was parked in the driveway, but there was no sign of her. Her stepfather discovered that Long's work clothes were lying on her bedroom floor and her purse, makeup and money were also in the room. Because she occasionally stayed overnight at her boyfriend's residence, her stepfather was not initially concerned. Long often stayed out of touch with her loved ones for a day or two as the result of her work and social schedule. Long's boyfriend arrived at her stepfather's home during the morning hours of August 15 and asked where she was. She hadn't reported to work since the night of her disappearance and never retrieved her last paycheck. Long's mother told reporters that it was uncharacteristic of her daughter to leave her makeup behind for an extended period of time. Lloyd said that, contrary to what Long claimed, she never had plans to visit his house during the early morning hours of August 14 and he had not purchased a gift for his mother. None of the neighbors on Ashland Drive heard any unusual noises during the evening hours, with the exception of a few thumps and a door slamming at approximately 1 a.m. Long scheduled an interview with a local company during the summer of 1991 and was excited about the possibility of working there. But when she called the company to confirm the time of her interview, she learned that no interview had been scheduled. It isn't clear if these events were connected to her case. An anonymous woman called Long's stepfather's residence in 1992, claimed she was Long, asked for help, then terminated the message. Long's mother reviewed the answering machine tape and concluded that the individual was not her daughter. Long's stepfather said that he heard a rumor that Long had a secret boyfriend who resided in the Lake Tobbasifkee, Georgia area in 1991. There was speculation that the man may have picked up Long from her home on the night of her disappearance, but no evidence has been located to determine if the man ever existed. Months after Long disappeared, her mother got a call from a man who said Long had gone to a job interview at the insurance company Geico. Long's mother didn't know anything about it. She called Geico and told them about the call, but the company said nobody with the same name as the caller was working for the company. Lloyd, the neighbor Long planned to visit on the day of her disappearance, provided an alibi in her case. He said he'd been out with a girlfriend that night. He also passed multiple polygraphs, and although he was questioned multiple times over the years about Long's disappearance, he wasn't considered a suspect. This changed when he died by suicide in September 2017, on the day he was scheduled to be interviewed by police again. He was 46 years old. Photos of Lloyd are posted with his case summary. He left a suicide note saying he was involved in Long's disappearance and also implicated Melinda McSwain. She was Long's age in 1991, and they attended high school together, although McSwain was a year behind Long. In October 2018, McSwain was charged with kidnapping in connection with Long's case. After she was arrested, Long's family said they didn't recognize her name. Photos of McSwain are posted with this case summary. She gave multiple statements to the police, saying she was involved in Long's kidnapping and murder. She is awaiting trial. Long was born in Memphis, Tennessee, but she grew up in Macon. She is a 1990 graduate of Southwest High School. She was interested in English in 1991 and considered becoming a teacher in the future. Her parents had her declared legally deceased in 1999. Foul play is suspected in her case due to the circumstances involved.
Number 2.
Holland resided on Peachtree Battle Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia in 1996. She also owned a vacation home in Flagler Beach, Florida at the time. Holland was planning to return to Atlanta from her Florida residence on August 16, 1996. She was last seen between 11:30 a.m. and 12 p.m. as she departed from her Flagler Beach home. She never arrived in Georgia as scheduled and has not been heard from again. Holland's sisters filed a missing persons report in Georgia shortly after she failed to return home. Authorities checked her residence and noted that there were few personal belongings inside the house. Her sisters and her boyfriend had keys to her Georgia home in 1996. All of them stated that they did not enter the residence after Holland's disappearance. Holland's champagne or gold-colored 1987 BMW 325i with Georgia license plates numbered BKT 664 was found abandoned on August 25, 1996, 8 days after she was last seen. The car was located on the northbound side of Interstate 75 in Morrow, Georgia, just south of Highway 54. It was parked near exit 76 between Macon, Georgia and Atlanta. It had a nail in the right side front tire, which was flat. Both of Holland's dogs were found in a field near the Stratford Arms apartment complex in Riverdale, Georgia after her disappearance. This was 2 miles from where her car was found. One of them had been killed in traffic, but the other, named Gracie, was rescued and given to Holland's sister. Several witnesses told authorities that Gracie had periodically walked along Valley Hill Road and Upper Riverdale Road during that time. One of the complex's residents said that Gracie attempted to lead him towards a wooded area across the street from the apartments. Investigators searched the location, but no evidence pertaining to Holland's case was discovered. Authorities received an anonymous tip that Holland was seen near her BMW on Interstate 75 on the day she disappeared. The informant claimed that Holland was loading luggage into a white pickup truck at the time. Investigators searched the area where her car was abandoned, but no evidence was located. The sighting has never been confirmed. Holland operated an escort service in 1996. Authorities interviewed her business partner after Holland vanished. Her associate stated that the service had been in existence since 1992. The individual told investigators that he believed Holland had been murdered as the result of her business ventures. Authorities noted that her partner spoke of her in the past tense during their interview. The individual said that Holland had made several enemies in the past. Holland allegedly placed hidden video cameras around the escort services property. She reportedly recorded her employees and clients in compromising situations, then used the materials to blackmail the individuals. Holland's partner said that he heard several people discuss murdering her prior to her disappearance. Holland had been involved with her married boyfriend since 1989. He told authorities that he separated from his wife briefly in 1990, but they had since reconciled. Holland and her boyfriend had apparently planned to marry by December 1996, but he was having second thoughts at the time of her disappearance and remained married to his wife. Holland's boyfriend told investigators that he and Holland argued about the state of their relationship before she left for her Flagler Beach home in August 1996. She left her residence in Georgia while the matter was still unresolved. Her boyfriend stated that Holland paged him at approximately 11:30 a.m. on the day she disappeared. He called her back and she said she would phone him after she arrived in Atlanta. Holland's boyfriend said that he never heard from her again. He also said that he did not believe his wife was aware of their affair. Several of Holland's friends told authorities that she was depressed over her relationship and was tiring of the escort business in August 1996. She reportedly mentioned traveling to Europe to escape the situation. A source came forward with a recorded phone conversation between one of Holland's sisters and an unidentified person in September 1996. During the conversation, her sister said that it was possible that Holland went abroad and essentially staged her own disappearance. Authorities do not know if Holland left of her own accord or if other circumstances were involved in her case. Her disappearance remains unsolved.
Number 3.
Sandra was last seen in Sparks, Nevada on June 26, 1978. She was walking to the Greenbrae Shopping Center across the street from her family's apartment at 4th and Greenbrae Streets. She has never been heard from again. At the time of her disappearance, she was considered a runaway and authorities did little to find her. It's possible that Sandra was a victim of the serial killer couple Charlene and Gerald Gallego, who were ultimately convicted of the kidnapping and murders of several teenage girls in California, Oregon and Nevada. The Gallegos had abducted two teenage girls from the Sparks Fairgrounds on June 24, 1979, a year almost to the day after Sandra vanished. On the day Sandra disappeared, she had gotten permission from her mother to ride her bike to the Reno rodeo at the fairgrounds. The Gallegos are known to have been in the area that day. Gerald was sentenced to death in California for murder and died of natural causes on death row in 2002. Charlene testified against her husband in exchange for a reduced sentence and was released from a Nevada prison in 1997. She was last known to be living in California under a new name. The police have not been able to interview her about Sandra's disappearance, but they continue to pursue leads in the case. There has been no trace of Sandra since her disappearance in 1978. She was a student at Reed High School. She had moved to Nevada with her family from California. Her family stated she would have never run away from home.
Number 4.
Stephen was last seen at a supermarket in East Meadow, Long Island, New York on October 31, 1955. The establishment was a block and a half from his home. He had gone there with his mother and 7-month-old sister. Stephen's mother left him and his sister, who was in a carriage, outside the supermarket for about 10 minutes while she shopped for bread. When she came out, both children were gone. Stephen's sister was recovered still inside her carriage a few blocks away, but her brother has never been heard from again. In late November 1955, a student at Queens College in New York City wrote 3 letters demanding money from Stephen's parents in exchange for the toddler's safe return. Each letter asked for a larger amount. First $3,000, then $10,000, then $14,000. Stephen's parents attempted to comply, but the student turned out to be an opportunist who had nothing to do with Stephen's presumed abduction. It was suggested that Stephen might be the boy in the box or America's Unknown Child, a small boy who was found dead inside a cardboard box in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania in 1957. They both were blonde and blue-eyed, and both had the same scars, but the unidentified boy did not have a healed arm fracture as Stephen had, and Stephen's footprints, taken when he was a baby, did not match the Philadelphia child. In 2003, the police compared the unidentified boy's DNA with DNA from Stephen's sister to make sure and conclusively proved that Stephen was not the boy in the box. The child remains unidentified in spite of a major investigative effort that continues today. Stephen is originally from Iowa. His father was in the Air Force in 1955, and the family was stationed on Long Island. His father left the Air Force a few months after Stephen's abduction, and the family returned to Iowa. His parents divorced in 1957, and both of them later remarried. His father still lives in Iowa and had 2 sons by his second marriage. His mother now lives in Missouri. The case received additional media attention in 2009 when a Michigan man claimed he was Stephen, but DNA tests ruled out this possibility. There is very little evidence available to indicate Stephen's fate, and his case remains unsolved.
Number 5.
Antoinette was last seen inside her family's residence in the 200 block of Arnold Street off Route 66 in Gallup, New Mexico on April 6, 1986. Her sister told authorities that Antoinette opened the front door after an unidentified male knocked sometime after 3 a.m. Her sister reported that the man claimed to be their Uncle Joe. Antoinette went to answer the door, and her sister went back to sleep. A neighbor reported seeing an older model brown truck with New Mexico license plates outside Antoinette's home between 6:30 and 7 a.m. that morning. The neighbor saw a man get out of the truck and walk towards Antoinette's house. The witness couldn't describe the man or the truck in detail, however. Antoinette has never been heard from again. Her mother, who was asleep in the residence, didn't hear the knock on the door and didn't realize Antoinette was missing until approximately 7 a.m. when she went to wake up her children. She searched the neighborhood until 11 a.m. before notifying the police, but the police told her she would have to wait 8 hours before making an official missing persons report. Authorities questioned Antoinette's uncle regarding her disappearance, but he is not considered a suspect and was never thought to be involved in her abduction. About a year after Antoinette disappeared, the Gallup Police Department got a phone call from someone who said she was Antoinette and she was in Albuquerque. Before they could trace the call, the police heard an angry-sounding male voice say, "Who said you could use the phone?" They heard the sound of a scuffle and a scream, then the line went dead. The call lasted only 40 seconds. Antoinette's mother listened to a recording of the call and believes the female voice was her daughter's. 4 years later, a waitress in Carson City, Nevada thought she saw Antoinette. She described as a girl in her early teens who was sitting with an unkempt couple. The girl kept dropping her fork and, each time the waitress picked it up for her, she squeezed the waitress's hand. After they all left, someone found a note under the girl's plate that read, "Help me. Call police." It has not been confirmed that the girl in the restaurant was Antoinette. Antoinette's case remains unsolved. She was a fourth grader at Lincoln Elementary School at the time of her disappearance and is described as mature and responsible for her age. Investigators believe foul play may have been involved in her disappearance and that she is deceased.
Number 6.
Christopher stayed home from school on April 20, 1990. He said he had a bad headache and planned to stay home from school. His father went away on a business trip that day, and his mother left him alone at their Eagan, Minnesota residence after giving him an over-the-counter pain medication for his headache. When they came home, the family's light blue 1988 Dodge Caravan was gone, the family dog was running around loose, and there was a note on the kitchen table from Christopher reading, "Mom, something important came up plus feeling somewhat better. Back by 6. Unless I get lost. Love, Chris." The word "lost" in the note was underlined twice. Christopher's mother believes his statement about getting lost was just a reference to the fact that he occasionally got lost while he was driving. Christopher never arrived home and has never been heard from again. He withdrew $200 from his savings account the day he disappeared. The next day, a handwritten note arrived at his parents' home, postmarked Duluth, Minnesota. That town is about 2.5 hours from Eagan. The note said Christopher had lied about being sick so he could use the family's car to get away, to not even I know where. He said he intended to take his own life and apologized for hurting his family and loved ones. 2 days after Christopher was last seen, the Dodge Caravan was found abandoned on the roadside in Itasca County in northern Minnesota, near the George Washington State Forest and the Chippewa National Forest, about 20 miles north of Grand Rapids, Minnesota. Christopher's grandparents lived in Grand Rapids. Inside the van were the keys and a note from Christopher explaining who owned the van. An extensive search of the area turned up no indication of his whereabouts. It's possible he hitchhiked to an unknown destination. After Christopher's disappearance, his family got a tip from someone who claimed they'd picked up a hitchhiker resembling him, who asked to be taken to Duluth, the place where the suicide note had been mailed from. This story has not been verified. The family also got a lot of strange calls where the caller would not speak and there would be background noise like a party. Christopher's mother believes the strange calls were from him. They continued for 6 months before stopping abruptly. In 2004, the Eagan Police Department got an anonymous letter postmarked Seattle, Washington that asked them to stop looking for Christopher. The letter writer said Christopher was a guardian angel and that he would return home when he was ready. Police eventually concluded the letter was a hoax. Prior to his disappearance, Christopher hadn't given any indications there were problems in his life. He was an excellent student who'd been invited to join the National Honor Society and was a National Merit Scholar semi-finalist, and he was a member of his school's swimming team and played the clarinet. His other hobbies included skiing, camping, reading, laser tag and computers. Christopher was carrying his father's 1954 to 1956 model Mossberg 20-gauge bolt-action shotgun with a 3-shell clip at the time of his disappearance, but he apparently didn't take any ammunition with him. Authorities believe the gun may have been abandoned somewhere in rural Minnesota and was possibly found later by a hunter. Photos of a similar gun and watch similar to what Christopher was wearing are posted with this case summary. Investigators would like to hear from anyone who found such a gun in 1990 or afterwards. Christopher's case remains unsolved, and many agencies classify it as a runaway. His parents still live in the house where they lived in 1990 and have kept the same phone number. Police believe it's likely he took his own life and that his body has not been found yet.
Number 7.
Pendergrass was a student at Rhodes College in Memphis, Tennessee in 2000. He was within 2 weeks of graduation. His family resided in Atlanta, Georgia, where his father worked as a plastic surgeon. Pendergrass was last seen leaving his residence in Memphis between 7:30 and 8 a.m. on December 1, 2000. He was driving his Navy 1998 Toyota 4Runner SUV with the Georgia license plate number 934 PT at the time. Pendergrass was scheduled to attend a Spanish class 4 blocks from his home that morning. He never arrived and has not been seen again. He apparently called a friend in Atlanta that morning. It was the last time anyone has heard from him. Pendergrass' SUV was discovered abandoned in Lana County, Arkansas at approximately 2 p.m. that day. The vehicle was located on a private dirt road off of South Kerr Road near Interstate 40, parked near the edge of Bayou Meta, a swamp often used by area hunters. It was unlocked and his keys were in the ignition. About 100 yards away were his clothes: blue jeans, a t-shirt, shoes and socks. His wallet, containing his driver's license and other identification, as well as credit cards and $46 in cash, was still in the jeans pocket. There was no sign of Pendergrass near his vehicle. Extensive searches of the surrounding area produced no clues as to his whereabouts. The police found Pendergrass' journal inside his abandoned vehicle. In it he wrote about silver elves and seeking immortality, and about walking into water and becoming one with nature again. It's unclear what he meant in these writings and whether his journal has any bearing on his case. His family doesn't believe he would have taken his own life, and there's no evidence that he was involved with drugs or any other illegal activity. Authorities have classified Pendergrass' disappearance as suspicious. At least one investigator believes the scene with his clothing was staged. It's uncharacteristic of him to leave without warning. His case remains unsolved.